Welcome to Big Basket Now presents the RCB podcast. Golf is one of the most commercially successful sports in the world. The European Tour, now known as DP World Tour, and the Ryder Cup sits at the very top of this list of highest ranked tournaments in international golf. I have with me Mr. Max Hamilton, Group Commercial Director of DP World Tour and Ryder Cup, the person whose rich history in golf and basketball administration makes him one of the most powerful voices in the sports community. Welcome, Max, to RCB Podcast.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
You see, in India, golf essentially is considered as a sport of the riches.
Yeah.
Is this how it's considered world around, or is there a different view to golf?
It does vary region by region or territory by territory.
Mhm.
So, the part of the world that I'm from Ireland and I live in the UK. Around there, it's less a sport for the riches. It is premium still in terms of the audience that it attracts.
Mm-hmm.
But we are building, I think, a more diverse audience for the sport in lots of different ways. And that's one of the things we will continue to try to do. So really, when you then take it from, and that will differ also in certain markets around Europe, for instance, where again, it's quite turbo premium or elitist nearly, that you might say.
Uh-huh.
And I recognize that that's the case in India, but it does mean that there's an opportunity for us to change that. Because I think what we'd like to do is try and help grow the game in India, try and grow that, not just from bringing an event here once a year and hoping that it changes, but working, with the federation here, working with key partners here to try and do that. And I think from what I can understand and are certainly from an ambition perspective for us, that's what we're going to try and do.
बस यही बोलना है, यही तुम्हारा ऐड?
Yeah, that's it.
सही है यार. Now delivering in 10 minutes.
What would be some of the challenges when it comes to commercialization of the sport? Max?
Anywhere, if you're trying to commercialize a sport, you've got challenges like is it played? Is there a pathway for players to engage in it, whether it's playing it or at least watching it and interacting with it? You've then got, and yes, golf has had those issues in its past. I think we are changing that as a sport. But you've also got, do you have a barrier in terms of broadcast?
Mhm.
So is it seen? And yourself, you need for it to be visible for people to engage in it. I think also you've got superstars who are so important.
Yeah.
So if we can find superstars coming from India, that will go a long way to developing a better following for the game. People will strive to emulate them, etc., etc. So I think we are very keen to try and do that and build on what we already have with our Hero Indian Open in India and with our players like Shrivaka Sharma here, and try and really find the next Indian superstars and might they be golfers. We've seen, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
the power of Hideki Matsuyama and his win with the Masters a couple of years ago in
Mhm.
Japan. What an amazing impact that is having on the sport in Japan. So the chance is there, but yes, there are those hurdles, and we're very aware of them.
Right. However, one talent can make all the difference. And at the same time, on a global scale, even when golf is played, you do see it going to different parts of the world, and somehow it goes into tier 2, tier 3 cities. It may surprise everyone.
It does. It can. Golf is a funny sport like that. We sort of sometimes refer to it as a bit of a traveling circus in
Mhm.
that we go, and it's as a tour, it's a very, very complex thing to operate. So yes, it goes to, I think we're in certainly 25 different territories this new season in 44 different events in 25 new territories around the world. And that, when you then think that we don't necessarily go to the same venue every in every territory every year. Sometimes you've got to recreate it and recreate it and recreate it. But we do that all within, I suppose, the realms of we're trying to build an audience each time. We're trying to leave a legacy each time. We've got ways and means we do that. We try and bring our partners with us or find new partners in those territories. And we play also where our players are from. We're very rich in terms of our playing population and where the world's best golfers will end up and do end up on the DP World Tour. And then clearly through our alliance with the PGA Tour in the US, we now have that cross-pollination of players going to the PGA Tour in the US and coming back from the US too.
Right. Over the last 5 years, golf has seen a good rise in numbers. There has been a lot of explosion of the sport in itself. What do you accredit that to? Why is that?
A couple of different reasons, I think. I think sheer digitization in terms of following of sport, the ability to not necessarily sit and watch 4 days of a golf tournament, but actually consume it in short form content. Whether that's highlights of the day's play, whether it's some of the non-live viral content that we create now with our players and our partners, etc. So I think there's a lot of that. I think there's different ways that people can start to play the game and understand the game. I was in Dubai a couple of weeks ago, and there's now an enormous Topgolf in Dubai. And you see players who've never held a golf club before going and enjoying a night out centered around the sport, but it's gamification of the sport, if you like. Yeah. So that's a whole different thing as well. And I think, again, the superstars, there's a whole generation behind now Tiger Woods and even a generation behind them who you've seen, say, at the Ryder Cup recently. And that big event that is the Ryder Cup transcends the sport and introduces new personalities to a global fan base who are looking at it. And so we try and, I guess, use that. And now as we look at our new tour, for instance, our schedule for 2024, we're looking at when are those players going to be playing on it, how to engage each of the markets and the fans in those markets when they do come back and play. So all of that stuff adds up, I think.
बस यही बोलना है, यही तुम्हारा ऐड?
Yeah, that's it.
सही है यार. Now delivering in 10 minutes.
The DP World Tour with the European Tour is a massive tie-up. Talk to us about how the blueprint for the next 5 years looks for this.
Yeah, so we've been very lucky in finding in DP World a tour-wide partner on First, and I think as such, the fact that it's got world in its title is significant too. When you think of where we play across 5 different continents, we weren't a European tour in those terms for a long while. So we are very enthused about what that means. So for instance, what that means is we go to new markets together. We open up. We've just started playing in Korea, for instance, and in Singapore, for instance, where they are big markets for DP World in their business, but they're also big markets for us in terms of playing in Asia and opening up new fans and engagement with fans there, new partnerships there. So I think all of that bodes well. Obviously, we're all looking at the global golf landscape and the evolution of that and seeing how that works. But certainly from a sort of a business as usual perspective for 24, we're really pleased with how our partnership with DP World is going. The sheer globality of it, they're activating in so many markets and really in quite a sophisticated way in terms of how they utilize the platform of golf from a business and a brand perspective. So we also take from that and try to see how can we help other partners, for instance, look at how they do it.
Right. Max, this is your first time here in India. What have you heard about the golf landscape here and just the potential of the sport in our country with so many people?
I think the potential is huge. In fact, I've just had a discussion today around grassroots program that's going into thousands of schools, which would welcome golf into it, and golf has not been a part of it. And you look at something like that, you think, how can we, as a DP World Tour, engage in that? Is there a pathway from that to the Indian Open that we put on? Is there a pathway beyond the Indian Open that we put on to our tour itself, etc.? So there's huge opportunity. I think there has been a spike in terms of interest in the sport over the last couple of years. We've seen that elsewhere as well, whether it's been, as we say, all those reasons around the ways to engage in it, but even the pandemic when it hit, people were able to play golf in certain areas around the world where they weren't able to play other sports.
Right.
There's huge opportunity, but we need to engage it and embrace it. And I'm very, having been here over the last couple of days, keen for us to find ways to do that. And it's been very useful as such.
Right. Let's talk about the youngsters. Gen Z has a very short attention span. How do you ensure that the sport stays relevant to the young generation and the generations to come?
Yeah, I think we've got to improve. When we talk about the broadcast, for instance, we look at how do we use technology to make it as relevant as possible, as interactive as possible for them. So we do things now around, you can follow certain groups at certain tournaments and not just follow the general coverage. There's different angles you can use. When you talk about at events itself, again, we're making that as accessible as possible. We're turning our events into kind of more festivals of golf. So we're putting concerts on at our main events, for instance, making sure the hospitality is different. We're giving people a chance to follow players around the course using our app and the sophistication of our app, the advancement of our app. So making it easier for you to attend an event. And we're trying to activate with partners that we have to make sure that it's just a more immersive experience. I think all of those things are important when we look at, how we keep the younger generations engaged. But also it goes back to short form and format, making sure that we're continually advancing ways in which you can get involved in golf and with the personalities in golf and get to know them without necessarily having to tune in for the 4 days, because we know that that's not what everybody can do.
बस यही बोलना है, यही तुम्हारा ऐड?
Yeah, that's it.
सही है यार. Now delivering in 10 minutes.
Involving broadcast as well, and changing the way, making it interactive, fan engagement experiences. Do all of that come in, and does that play a major role when it comes to golf, to keeping the younger generation hooked in?
Yeah, I mean, we're very fortunate in terms of also having our own European Tour productions. So that enables us to take control over certainly the non-live, and then from a live perspective, we're bringing advancements into our own production, into our own broadcast. So it gives a certain amount of control, but we do that with our broadcasters, in partnership with our broadcasters. So I think, they're all keen as well to keep innovating, keep advancing how we create this product and bring it to market, if you like, and engage audiences as we do. We're very fortunate as well to have events like the Ryder Cup where you can try and new things, and then you could take those new things and see how they can work on the tour. And the other point is we're working closely through our strategic alliance with the PGA Tour. So we're also looking at how do we take what's working on the PGA Tour in the US and bring it to life on the DP World Tour internationally. So I think there's lots of different angles we have, but the common theme is, yes, we're always trying to innovate and advance, and we're very, very conscious of the need to engage the younger audience as we do it.
Right. Like you said, just circling back to a player can make a huge difference. I think youngsters, when they take the front pages for different milestones that they achieve, the sport gets a huge ripple, and we see the kind of effect it has. This is your first time here in India. What do you think of the RCB Innovation Lab Leaders India Summit? Would you have preferred this to be in the greens, where you can probably play a game? And what are some of your biggest takeaways?
I think it's been really educational. I think probably the first one is just the sheer scale of, we're sitting here in Bangalore, and everybody I speak to who was from Bangalore is telling me, well, this is very different, to Mumbai, very different to Delhi, and very different to different parts of India, and the sheer scale of it. So that's probably the first thing. I think from a leader's perspective, and having the event here has been a really, really good move. I think it's always tough to come somewhere new, do something new. But I've been to different leaders events around the world, and this has been fantastic. So I congratulate with RCB and Innovation Lab for putting it on and doing something new and innovating by sheerly hosting the event. I've been learning all about RCB and the IPL as well while I've been here, which fascinates me. Just again in terms of fandom and the sheer scale of what that is remarkable. And I'll certainly be tuning in more closely, I think, for next season
Right.
as it develops.
I bet lots of cross-cultural conversations, and you have a lot of people maybe drawing parallels between golf and cricket.
Well, there's certainly a lot of very good golfers amongst the professional cricket community. We have
Our cricketers love golf.
Yeah. In fact, I think we had 2 weeks ago, we had Sachin Tendulkar, who was with McIlroy, and they were doing putting together in Dubai. We've had a lot of the England cricketers I know play in pro-ams, for instance, and they're all, the hand-eye coordination is there. It's nearly unfair when I look at how good they are at golf as well as being so good at cricket. So that whole area, I think of a lot of professional sports people's second sport happens to be golf.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting area for us to think about. We do it from a pro-am perspective, but we're starting to look at it from even a content perspective. We talked about engaging new audiences. That's a key way you can engage new audiences. We had, to give you an example, at the Ryder Cup, we had Novak Djokovic and Gareth Bale play together on the Wednesday before the Ryder Cup started in our celebrity game. And it was incredible just to watch. They're both incredible golfers, but they also go through the struggles that all amateur golfers go through, and they're playing in front of 30,000 people or something. So I think that's a really interesting area too. And it's certainly been in discussions I've had with some of our key partners, an area that they're interested in when they have different properties or different assets and different athletes that they kind of want to bring together. Golf can often be a common denominator.
Right. Well, we certainly hope for the sport to thrive a whole lot more. Bangalore was known as the Garden City of India. We would certainly encourage more and more greens to come in, and definitely the sport to thrive as well. Max Hamilton, thank you so much for spending time with us on the RCB podcast. Look forward for plenty more. Cheers.
My pleasure.
Big Basket Now presents the RCB podcast.